I saw more enthusiasm. But more than that, in just my brief time there, and I tried to attend everything I could, I saw more education on missions than I'd ever been exposed to my entire life. And that's when I remember walking away from there. I almost wrote Bill a letter and said, Bill, will you write a letter to other groups like this and tell them to invite me to speak? And then I realized he couldn't do it because there aren't other groups. No, I really did. I thought if there were I walked away saying this was an excellent investment of my time. But there's no other place where they could really invite you. You could walk away. There might be 2 or 3, and that's it. But boy, I believe this. I think what is happening in the world is going to open up opportunities like we never dreamed. But I'll tell you this, the church won't see it unless it's educated. Won't. So much of what I shared right here, there's not a pastor hardly understands it, knows, or anything. And when it happens, they won't even realize it. I wonder how many will even realize that World War I of multiculturalism is now taking place. We need education, and that's one reason I'm so enthusiastic about Mission Connexion. Let me show you how this historical progression has affected us. Now, I think because of what's happening in Europe and all, in the Middle East, it's going to start changing. And I really believe I'm going to be able to add a little bit to this. Right up to 2012, 2015 will be significant change that will open up if the church is ready. Just if. It wasn't ready to respond to MacArthur for Japan. But one reason I'm here tonight is I believe one of the hopes is Mission Connexion. Why? They're so, well, you saw when Bill spoke in the power, they're so committed to education. Come on. 125 seminars average at a MissionCon with over 25,000 through them. You can't go anywhere and find that. Then, it's affected us in the area of truth. And boy, is that affecting the gospel. Here in the United States, of evangelical, fundamental, born-again Christian young people, man, that's a mouthful. Evangelical, fundamental, born-again Christian young people. In 1991, we're asked about truth. Now, here's the difference in truth. A lot of people refer to it as absolute truth. Ooh, I don't like that word. It just seems so arrogant to me. I like the word universal truth. That which is true for all people in all places at all times. When Jesus said, I am the truth, he just didn't mean it to the Jews before him. He meant it to all people in all places at all times right here to us tonight. That's absolute truth. Absolute truth is that which is true whether you believe it or not. You see, there's people that don't believe that? Oh, yeah. 90% of young people don't. 90% of young people don't believe there's any truth unless they believe it. If they don't believe it, it's not true. Of these evangelical, fundamental, born-again young people, in 1991, 52% said there is no truth. Now, what I'm sharing here, folks, has a direct impact on missions. There is no truth. In 1994, that escalated to 62%. Same controls everything. In 1999, escalated to 78%. Folks, do you even grasp what you're seeing up there? You know what it is now? One of the most staggering statistics in the history of the church and has a direct effect upon missions. 91% of evangelical, fundamental, born-again Christian young people say there is no truth apart from me. It's all internal, it's all personal. Well, it might be true for you, but it's not true for me. Mom, that's your truth. Who are you to judge me? Who are you to say that your truth is better than mine? These are Christian young people. Who am I to say my truth is better than yours? Why should I take my truth to other lands? Well, that's against multiculturalism. That's against our culture. That's against everything we believe to be true in a culture that doesn't believe in truth. Of all teenagers in America, only 6% will say there's any truth apart from myself. Of non-believers, 4%. Of believers, 9%. Only 5% difference in the very crux of the Christian faith. You're sitting there saying, well, Josh, that's why we have missions and go to other countries and everything. Wake up, folks. I have pastors and others who say to me, oh, Josh, you're exaggerating it. This is an anomaly. This is a spike in research. Look, I might be dumb, but I'm not stupid. I'm smart enough to know the difference between facts and a spike in research. For example, of the very core values of the Christian faith, the 5 core values, the reliability of the Scriptures, the deity of Christ, the resurrection, truth, and salvation through faith in Christ. The generation ending 1945 of evangelical, fundamental, born-again Christian young people, 65% adhered to those 5 basic core values. The next generation fell to 35%. The next generation fell to 15%. You know what this generation is right now? 4%. You say, well, okay, it might be true here, folks. I can sit here and tell you I don't know one place in the world that is any more than 5 to 7 years behind the United States on truth, right within the Church of Christian Kids. You say, come on. Look, if you could show me a place, I would move there and study it. The problem is, hardly anyone does scientific research. It's all storytelling. In other words, something happens here, and then they say, well, that's true of everyone. So we spent about $200,000, and we created a paradigm of research. Because in most countries, they've never done it. And they'd never studied the church or anything. So we've selected different countries with counsel that would represent the majority of the world to see where they stood in the issue of truth. Because that's the gospel. Let me show you what I found. China. Everybody's tweeting about China. Of the evangelical, fundamental, born-again Christian young people in Chinese churches, 77% says there is no truth. In China? Yeah. Poland, 49%. United Kingdom, 80%. Mexico and all Latin America, between 73, 76%. Romania, 70%. The United States, 91%. It's a universal phenomenon. It's created. I remember back when Al Gore invented the internet. Everybody was hailing the internet. And I love the internet, but I said, there's a real danger. There's a real danger for the Christian faith. I said, the overabundance of information, which it has. Oh, folks. I used to say that my most valuable asset, apart from my granddaughter Brenna, my most powerful asset was my time. That's not true anymore. I know everybody runs around and says that about himself. It's not my asset anymore. My number one asset is my focus. You say, why? Well, let me show you why. When I did the book called Why Wait on Sexual Purity, it was about this big. In 6 months, I probably exhausted 90% of all the research out there in the world. When I redid it and updated it to Why True Love Waits, in 6 months, I might have exhausted 3% of the information out there. And what I found is, where am I going to focus? I only got 24 hours a day. Where am I going to focus that 24 right in research? And I said way back, 12, 14 years ago, I said, the internet will not bring certainty, it will not bring belief. It'll bring agnosticism and skepticism. An abundance of information does not lead to certainty, folks. It leads to skepticism. And all over the world, we are facing that now, especially those about 35 and younger. And it's simple this. If you talk to young people, you see it. And they say, well, how do you really know what's true? There's so much out there. How do you know what to believe? When everybody thought all this information would really lead to certainty and belief, no, it's led to skepticism and agnosticism all over the world. And we've got to face up to that. Right now, probably 80-85% of all evangelical, fundamental, born-again Christian young people in the finest churches in America walk away from the church and their faith within 12 months of high school graduation. So they did a study of 18,000 who are now agnostics, skeptics, atheists who had walked away from their faith and said, why did you walk away? Open-ended question. A closed-ended question of these 5 things choose. Open-ended, why? So a closed-ended question, you might have 60-70% as number one. Open-ended, 10% could be number one. 32% of the 18,000 said this. Let me read it. Intellectual skepticism. I can't believe it's true. And then he went on like this. It doesn't make sense anymore. Some stuff is too far-fetched for me to believe. There's so much out there. How do you know what to believe? Too many questions that no one will answer for me, meaning the church. So they did another study. What will bring him back? What will bring him back? Now, folks, this is all over the world. What will bring him back? 63% on an open-ended question. What would bring you back to faith? Now, this is true for those who have never been a Christian or anything, or, profess Christ. 63% said, I would come back to faith in the church if the church presented to me truth in a way I understood it and it related to my life. Folks, we have a truth crisis in the world. And we better take that into consideration with missions. And that means one thing. We better educate of what's going on out there. I believe what we see as missions right now will be totally different in 5 years. I truly do. And I wasn't as courageous any other time tonight, Bill, when you spoke and I looked up there and you said, this is what we're looking at, this and this and that. I thought, whoa. Bill McLeod is not what do you call it, person that just status quo. I mean, just with what you laid out there, Bill, it shows that you see the future. You don't know all what's going to be in there, but you're going to be ready to meet it. Well, that's what we've got to get out into the churches, folks. Because most churches on their own are not capable of that. One, they don't even have the time for it. To find all those things out. Churches don't have the time to bring in the experts, everything else that are out there, where Mission ConneXion can.